And so you don't want to own something you didn't do. You don't want to apologize for things you didn't do. Another thing you don't want to do is say something like, I'm sorry you're sad. It's almost the same as saying, I'm sorry you're stupid. You don't do things like that. You apologize for things that you did. Welcome to another episode of What to Say and How to Say It. Today, we're going to be talking about something that happened. I had a client, and she gave me permission to talk about this. It was pretty powerful. I think it's a common thing that people struggle with too. And so I wanted to bring up when not to apologize, what to own when you apologize. And, honestly, just the whole process of apology. Like, what do you say? How do you say it? What do you not say? One of the things that we have to first be aware of in our culture is that we have two types of I'm sorry. The first one is, hey, I'm sorry I did this thing. I regret that I did XYZ. It's a communication about regret of an action that we take took that injured somebody. So there's that awareness. The second one is, oh, I'm so sorry your mother died, which is, I'm not responsible for your mother dying, but I have compassion for you in that. And that's what that I'm sorry is meant to communicate. It's actually a communication of I'm sad with you about this thing. So we need to understand that those two things are out there. And I want to challenge our listeners and class members and everybody to basically stop using, even though it's common in Western culture, I want you to stop using the second form of I'm sorry, the I'm sad with you, I'm sorry. And here's why. When you do that, it can facilitate further blaming by somebody that you're in relationship with, and that causes, on a subconscious level, it can cause them to disrespect you. So you don't want to own things that you didn't do, that you're not responsible for. You can be sorry with someone. And here's what happened with my client. This is the coolest thing. It was like light bulbs were going off all over the place. It was an amazing moment for her and some other people. And what happened was she had given her spouse some feedback about something that he'd done, said, whatever. The context is completely irrelevant, doesn't matter. But it upset him that that was what was true for her, and that he had done this thing, and that, so now he's feeling sad, right? He's feeling not awesome, or whatever it was that he was feeling around it. And she wanted to validate his experience, but she didn't know how to do that. She felt this resistance to it. And I want to call out what that is. It's called cognitive dissonance. And the reason that was there for her is because she thought that if she apologized, she was undoing the truth of what she brought to him, which was, hey, it hurt my feelings when, you did this thing. So in her mind at that moment, apologizing meant that, or validating meant that she was giving up what she brought that was no longer true. And so here's the thing, those things can be simultaneously true together. So I can be sad with you that you're hurting and still hold on to, it's true that you did this thing and I felt XYZ and I brought it to you and now you're sad. Like, it doesn't undo the thing that happened in the first place. It doesn't make that go away. And I'm not giving up anything to say, hey, I'm sad with you. I know this hurts. Yeah. And the reason that matters is because we can have deeper relationship with people if we can empathize with them in the suffering that they have, even if they caused it themselves, right? Even if you're not the one to bring to them this issue, maybe they're experiencing the outcome that would be natural and normal for them as a natural life consequence of doing this thing. You can be sad with them. And that's a phrase I'd encourage you to use. I'm sad with you that this thing happened. That's legit. And so you don't want to own something you didn't do. You don't want to apologize for things you didn't do. Another thing you don't want to do is say something like, I'm sorry you're sad. It's almost the same as saying, I'm sorry you're stupid. You don't do things like that. You apologize for things that you did. And I'm going to give you something. This is from Dr. Gary Chapman's book, the 5 languages of apology. He is also the author of the 5 love languages. Brilliant dude, right? You can take his online 5 love languages test and learn where do I fall out. And your spouse can take this thing and you can compare. It's like, oh, I'm wanting acts of service, but your words of affirmation, and I give you acts of service, but because that's what I am, and you're telling me nice things because that's what you are, and we're missing each other. So that's an awareness when you can show up differently. A lot of people like quality time, and people that don't get that they're like, I don't understand what I'm doing here. Like, they're not even interacting with me. Well, your presence means a lot to that person. So there's nuances to it. I recommend the book 5 Love Languages big time. 5 languages of apology is really interesting. I've taken his test like 3 or 4 times. I can't figure myself out. So we say do all of them. And I'm just going to run through them real quick. There's 5. The first one is express regret. And when you express regret, that's actually the verbiage of, I am so sorry. I apologize to you for doing whatever. I regret that I did this. You verbally, it's really short, I express regret. I apologize. I'm sorry. You say those words. Some people really need to hear, I'm sorry. Okay. Second one is admit fault, take responsibility. So that is when we say, you know what, I was wrong to do XYZ. And we own that. And that is huge for a lot of people, that we take responsibility for our actions. And the languaging, the what to say of that is, I was wrong too, or it was wrong of me too. And you own it, right? You admit that you did something wrong. Boy, got to be humble, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. Third is restore relationship. And that means that you try to fix what is broken. But you don't say, I'll replace your cat, no, or I'll pay for the damage to your car. No, you ask the person, what can I do to make this up to you? And so that's a thing, because they may say to you, it just knowing that you take responsibility is, that means a lot to me, and that you're sorry, that's a lot. The fourth one is change your behavior. And that's not a thing that we just up and do. We ask, would it be better if I, did this instead next time? Would you like me to blah, blah, blah. So we ask about how do you want me to show up differently next time? Because there's lots of options there. We might think we know the one that would make a difference for this person. And you don't agree to doing something that is against your values or is a betrayal of yourself in that space. But you do ask, what do you need from me here in the future? And you ask them how you can show up differently. Because change behavior is a huge, sorry, dogs. Change behavior is a huge thing for a lot of people. The last one is to ask for forgiveness. Some people don't feel like there's been an apology or that anybody's sorry for anything unless somebody said, hey, will you forgive me for this? And so let those 5 things, express regret, admit fault, take responsibility, restore relationship, change behavior, and then finally ask for forgiveness. Hey, will you forgive me? Those are the 5 languages of apology. We recommend you do all of them. And if you can't remember them, it really doesn't matter, because if they don't forgive you, or if they keep going on and on about it, and you've validated their experience and you've apologized and you've hit 2 out of the 5, maybe try another one. What do you need from me to make this right? I'm so sorry. And you have some genuine compassion around it, then that's legit. What's also something interesting is if somebody keeps bringing up to you the same thing that you did wrong 28 years ago, they haven't forgiven you for it. Now, if you're still doing that same thing today, that's a new thing. And it doesn't mean they haven't forgiven you for that other thing. It means that you keep doing the same thing again, and they want you to stop. And so in that's different, right? But if you have somebody that's bringing up something that you've already apologized, you've said you're sorry, you've taken responsibility, said you were wrong, you've asked what it takes to make it up to them, and you've changed your behavior and you've asked for forgiveness, maybe they've even said, hey, I forgive you, then a good question to ask them or what to say would be, hey, what does it take? What do you need to be able to really forgive me and move past this? And then listen to what they say. And if it's something that you can do, and then do it, right? If it doesn't violate your boundaries, if it doesn't violate your values, then why wouldn't you do this for somebody you love? So those are things to take into consideration as you're looking at apology. And I mentioned earlier, pride. If you're not taking a look at how your behavior impacts the people around you and seeing that you do some negative things, like if you can't see that, like most of us have something to apologize for on a daily basis. No kidding, no lie, right? Like, I'm sorry that I, forgot to whatever, or I'm sorry that I didn't make the coffee last night, or I'm sorry that I, forgot to, pay the power bill or whatever it is, right? So on a daily basis, because we're human and because we are not perfect, we're making mistakes. And so if you're going through your life and the last time you apologized to somebody was 1972, what's that about? Like, for real, what is it within you? And maybe you were raised in a culture where apology was weakness. That is a real thing. And maybe you're afraid to be vulnerable and take ownership. But I will tell you that if you don't, you're going to continue to experience the shame that you're feeling now. You're going to continue to be resistant towards it. It should cost you nothing to own something that you did wrong. If you're constantly turning and pointing at that other person, saying, well, yeah, but they did XYZ, that's not your problem. That's in their yard. That's between them and God. You have to do what's right within you and own your harsh behavior, own your mean words, own your hurtful XYZ. Like, I don't know what happened this morning exactly. I'm not a human being before coffee, and I'm not exactly sure what I said to my husband. I don't think it was friendly at all, but I apologized. I'm sorry. I don't. I know I wasn't warm and fuzzy this morning when you woke me up to take you to do XYZ. And he was like, hey, I'm sorry I didn't tell you to the night before. I'm like, no, that was good. But I'm not a human, right? And I'm not justifying that. I apologized, even though I know I'm this way. I don't expect the other people around me to be impervious to the non-human thing that I am, the creature that I am at the first thing in the morning before coffee. Like, that's just unpleasant, right? I don't want to be like that. I've worked 40 some years on not being like that, but it is unfortunately a huge character flaw of mine. And I'm going to keep working on it. And I'm going to keep apologizing when I'm not the person I want to be in that space, which is all of us. We have these opportunities on a daily basis. So I want to encourage you to be an adult, own your stuff, step into that space and apologize, knowing when and knowing what and knowing what to say and how to say it. Have a great day.